Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of Barrow Council's Executive Committee. I'm Councillor Derek Brook. I'm the chair of the executive. We've been doing these meetings for quite a while now, but I will have to remind you of domestic arrangements while you're all here. So keep your phones on silent. If you want to speak, raise your hand via the raised hand facility. If you're not speaking, keep everything on mute. Don't interrupt other speakers. If you lose connection, we will adjourn for 10 minutes to try and sort it out and reconnect you. And I would remind you all, we're on YouTube with who knows how many hundreds of thousands of millions of people watching us. When we come to vote, we'll ask Democratic Services to manage the process, and you'll be asked to unmute and vote accordingly. So we've been doing this all so long now that I'm sure somebody will speak when they're on mute and the usual stuff, but let's just get on with it. And have we got any apologies or substitute members?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take that if you don't mind. So we have received apologies from Councillor Barlow. Can you indicate if you're present, please? Councillor Biggins?
Yes, present.
We've received apologies from Councillor Blessard, and Councillor Ann Thompson is subbing in his place. Councillor Brook?
Present.
Edwards?
Present.
Hamilton?
Present.
McClure?
Present.
Maddox?
Present.
Morgan?
Present.
Pemberton?
Present.
Roberts?
Present.
Ronson?
Present.
Thompson?
Different.
Councillor Thompson?
Oh. I said present here.
Thank you.
I'd already said it once.
Chief Exec?
Present.
Director Resources?
Present.
Director of People and Place?
Present.
Assistant Director of Community Services?
Present.
Assistant Director Housing? Jan?
Present.
Head of Legal and Democratic Services?
Present.
Development Services Manager, Policy Regeneration? Helen? I can see Helen. Helen's there. Commercial Estates Manager?
Present.
Corporate Support Manager?
Present.
Operations Manager?
Present.
Sandra Kemsley? Democratic Services, and Clem Muir.
Present.
Thank you very much. That's it, Chair.
Well, that was exciting, wasn't it? Welcome, Claire. We have to do this, I'm afraid. Sorry about that, but you know, it's the way it goes, isn't it? Urgent items. We haven't got any urgent items. Item 3, delegations. Does anybody wish to move any delegated items to be non-delegated? No. Good. Admission of public and press. Are the public and press to be excluded from any of the items? We have one item that's a part 2, don't we? Are we all agreed with that item, whatever it is? Deed of surrender. Yeah. All the rest we're okay with people being virtually present. Does anybody, agenda item 5, does anybody have any declarations of interest? Don't like it. Item 6, do you agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of February 2021 be signed by me in person at some point in the future, hopefully this year? Yeah.
Agreed.
Item 7, public participation. We've had no requests to ask a question. So we're now on to agenda item 8, a presentation on the Morecambe Bay Collaborative. And I guess Andy Knox is not quite here yet. Can't see him here. So Claire Muir, Transformation and Change Lead, Morecambe Bay CCG, is going to give us a really exciting presentation on the Morecambe Bay Anchor Collaborative, I believe.
Okay, hi everybody.
All yours.
Thank you for that very warm introduction there. And yes, apologies, and Andy should be joining us, but I suppose it's just the nature of being a GP and home visits and things that they can run over. But I know he's gonna try and be here. So I'm just gonna share some slides with you all. Can you just confirm that they're sharing?
Yes, they're fine.
Yes.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have just been introduced, but my name's Claire Muir. I'm part of the population health team at Morecambe Bay CCG with Dr. Andy Knox. But of course, that's a Bay Health and Care Partners team, so we're working right across the system. And I'm here to talk to you today about the Morecambe Bay Anchor Collaborative, which we've been working on for quite some time now, and been working on in partnership with our chief execs from the 3 district councils. But now we're at that pivotal point where we really want to be presenting this to you today, to the cabinets, to the wider community, because it's just essential that we move forwards in partnership, really. So just really hoping that you're on board with this, or if you've got any suggestions as well. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of background around why we're working in this way and really pushing this approach and working in new ways really right across Morecambe Bay. And there's lots of evidence and data to support why we're doing this and why we need to be working in these innovative ways. So first of all, I'm sure everybody on here is very aware that we know that deprivation results in a much lower life expectancy, and that's been highlighted even more so by the COVID epidemic. And that's what this. I know it's very small, and I can share these slides afterwards with you all. But the slide on screen there with this graph is really just to show the impact of COVID. So all of those blue blocks there are a time period between April and November 2019, and they show the mortality under 75. And as we can see here, it's much higher in our areas of deprivation. And then the grey blocks show us the same time period this year, so following in 2020, so following COVID. And as we can see, the mortality under 75s has gone up across all groups, but actually the biggest gap is in the most deprived communities. So really it's just to show that actually, if anything, the COVID epidemic has widened the inequalities that we're experiencing, especially relating to mortality. So, of course, we want people to be living longer, but also we want people to be living well. And we also know that there's a correlation between deprivation and also lots of different health factors. So on screen here, we've just got a graph to demonstrate that. And this is Morecambe Bay specific data. And it's just to show that actually we have much higher prevalence of depression in our more deprived communities, which is this end here. So just to again show that there's those inequalities there. So what we've got on screen here, and again we can share this because I know it's really tiny, is I really like this. It's a nice image that shows us the pathway to a healthy life expectancy. So it's all of the different factors that impact upon someone's health and well-being throughout the life course. And there's all of the usuals on there. So things like alcohol, smoking, healthy weight, etc. But it also includes some of the wider determinants of health. So things like long-term employment and young adults in education, training or employment. And I suppose that's just to start to highlight that there are many things out there that impact upon the health and well-being of our communities that aren't necessarily directly linked to health and care services. So due to all of those reasons that are very clear to us all, it's raised some questions really around the role and responsibility of anchor organisations. So there are our big public sector organisations that are rooted in with our local communities, and there's a few characteristics of what an anchor organisation is there. But of course, our NHS and our councils are really key anchor organisations within the community. So really, we've started exploring our role as anchor organisations, and due to these characteristics that we've got on screen there, how can we really anchor and utilise our influence and our efforts to really start to make a difference to health and well-being by addressing some of those wider determinants of health that aren't necessarily our primary aim in what we're doing. And this is just an image that I've pinched from City and Hackney Anchor Network, because I think it's a really nice visual to show the different ways that the anchor organisations can really impact upon those wider determinants of health. So lots of different aspects to that, including widening access to quality work, reducing environmental impact, working more closely with local partners, and different things like paying a living wage and staff health and well-being. So that just sets that out quite nicely, I think. So what we've been leading to here is, so for all of the reasons just ran through, is why we've started to look and explore about developing a Morecambe Bay Anchor Collaborative. So this is at present, it's being led by the 3 district councils and the NHS through engagement with the chief execs. And essentially, it is a group of organisations that would sign up to this Morecambe Bay Anchor Collaborative, and we would work together to look at how we can identify, develop, and share the ways that as organisations we can positively contribute to the Bay Area. So yeah, right across the Bay Area. And just to really improve the health and well-being of our population, and looking at all those factors that might not necessarily be equated with health and healthcare services. So as we can see there, the current organisations involved are our 3 district councils, Morecambe Bay CCG and UHMBT. But I'll come on to this in a little while, but we are hoping to expand. So really it's just how we can work together to embed these anchor practices. So in order to take this work forward, we've been working in partnership to develop a Morecambe Bay Anchor Charter. So essentially this can be used, and it's a document that should I think it's been shared with you. If not, we can get that across to you as well. And it can be used by these organisations to self-evaluate their anchor status, so whether they're embedding these behaviours, to identify the opportunities to further embed anchor practices within the organisations. And that's both as an individual organisation, but actually what can we embed across the patch as partners to wider our impact as well. And also this charter can be used to measure impact and progress over time. So I've not got all of the detail of it in here, but you should have a copy of it. But just to give you a little bit of a flavour of the Anchor Charter, it's broken down into 6 key facets or domains, and these are taken from the Health Foundation and the guidance provided by them. So as you can see on screen here, they are widening access to quality work, purchasing commissioning for social value, expanding community access to anchor property, reducing environmental impacts, working with local partners, and tackling health inequalities. And under each of those headings, we also have different components. So to give you an example, under widening access to quality work, we've got widening workforce participation, building the future workforce, and being a good employer. And then under each of those headings, there are a list of criteria that you'd have to tick and say that you were doing those in order to say that you were widening workforce participation, and so on and so forth. So as part of the Anchor Charter, there is a scoring sheet, so we can demonstrate how we're getting on with these things, evidence any successes or any gaps or where we might want to progress. And there is also a bit of a scoring system as well. So organisations can be given a bronze, silver, gold or platinum anchor status as well. So we can really encourage celebrating these practices and how we can embed them even further. So the approach that we've been taking, or we're hoping to take from here, really is getting that organisational sign up from individual anchors across the Bay. And at the point that we do that, we're looking to look for a group of representatives or individuals who are interested in this to act as sort of that organisation's anchor champion. And that individual or individuals will be welcome to come to monthly steering group meetings. And those meetings will give us an opportunity to come together, support each other to work out our current anchor statuses, to sort of challenge each other, offer support and guidance, and look at what else we want to embed. We can share learning. So, for example, if health and wellbeing is a specific interest to a few organisations, and one organisation is really good at it, what can we do across? Or if one organisation is really good at procurement, or they pay all of their staff a living wage, can we share that learning across? But also we can look at actually how can we progress this work, and what can we do across the patch for that wider impact. And also it's that network of ongoing support and learning. So as I've said, it's the councils and the health services that are involved at the moment, but we're really, really keen to widen this even further and for it just to continue to grow and grow. So over the next few months, hopefully with your support, we're hoping to start to engage with the local universities, with colleges and bigger businesses that are rooted in our community, such as BA and EDF, because I'm sure you'll agree that they've got a huge impact and a say on a lot of these social determinants of health that impact upon our community. So it would be great to be working on board with them as well. So the plans for governance would be for each of the champions from the organisations to be providing those organisational updates at the steering group meetings. And from that, quarterly reports will be produced on progress. And they can go to the Population Health Strategy Group and the Bay Health and Care Partners leadership team. But we're also very happy for these reports to go anywhere else that it would be useful and identified. So it was just like, you know, they're hopefully going to be produced as part of this work. So as a steering group, we're also going to be looking at how we can celebrate this great work and the impact that it's making on our communities. So to start off with, we're looking at having a section on the Bay Health and Care Partners website, and also working with our comms colleagues to develop a range of resources and content that can be shared across organisations so that you can use that on your websites and your social media and so on and so forth, and newsletters to celebrate where you're at and get this message and start to really embed these practices. And then additionally, we're going to look for opportunities for accreditations and award schemes. So everyone on here absolutely knows that these sorts of behaviours, paying living wage and things like that is fantastic, and it's the right thing to do through, and it'll result in widening access to quality work and so on and so forth. But we also need to start thinking quite early around what outcomes do we want to be seen, such as that paying a living wage. So it'll be great if we can say this organisation is purchasing and commissioning for social value. But we know that we need to be asking that, well, what does that mean for our communities, really? But we're hoping to develop some outcomes so we know what we're really aiming for and to measure progress over time. And we're wanting to do that in collaborative, so in partnership as a steering group, but also learning from national anchor networks as well. But I've just included there on the slide a few examples that have been taken from other areas, such as Preston, and some of them have been taken from Leeds as well. So, for example, for widening access to quality work, as I've just said, we could look at the percentage of staff paid above the living wage. For purchasing and commissioning for social value, we could look at a targeted local procurement, including a target of a 5 to 10% increase shift over 3 years. Where we could look at the increase in the percentage of affordable housing to show if we're expanding community access to anchor property. We could be looking at reduced carbon output in relation to reducing the environmental impact, and also looking at that increased spread and scale of good practice, and also an overall reduction in health inequalities across the Bay. So that's everything from me, and I'm hoping that you've received a copy of the anchor charter and also a strategy document which outlines sort of this approach that we're hoping to take across the patch. But really, just to finish, it's just to say that we are really, really passionate about this piece of work, but it's absolutely fundamental that this is done in partnership, and we know the huge role that yourselves have within the community and links to businesses, and absolutely it's vital for us to be doing this in partnership. So it'd be great to whether it's now or following this, hear anyone's thoughts, or if anyone feels passionate and wants to get involved in this as well. So thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Claire. I see Andy snuck in during that
Andy might have
without bashing a door or anything. You just snuck in. Don't know if you want to add anything onto that, do you?
You probably.
Yeah, please. Thank you. And Claire, thanks so much for holding the fort and doing all of that. Everyone, I'm terribly sorry for being late. I had two very difficult palliative care visits at lunchtime with people who were far more poorly than I'd realised they were going to be when I got there. So it caused me to run late. I apologise for that. But Claire has, I think, laid this out absolutely brilliantly. I hope you can see it as a superb opportunity for us to partner together even more closely for the sake of our populations. I would really commend to you, if you've not had the chance, to read the paper that goes alongside this. It gives this in a great deal more depth and with a lot more details of the kind of things that an anchoring organisation or institution can really get involved in, and the implications on that for the health and well-being, but also financial prosperity of a locality. If you want to know more, Councillor Matthew Brown, the leader of the council in Preston, has just written a book about their journey about being an anchor institution and an anchor town over the last 5-6 years, or actually over about nearly the last 10 years now they've been on that journey. And his book, which was published just this last week, is called Paint the Town Red. It's very, very stimulating reading. I've got a copy, and he's a brilliant writer, so that's worth looking at. The Health Foundation's work on this as well, it shows the evidence base behind this and the rationale as to why this way of working can have such a massive impact on so many different facets of our economy, of our corporate social life together, and how it can make a big difference to health inequalities. So we really commend this work to you. We would really love to partner with you in it. And we hope that as you discuss it further, it's something that we can look forward to working with you on. But thank you so much for giving us time today. And if you have any questions, we're really willing to take those from you now.
Absolutely. And as well, just to thank Sam Plum as well for working with us on this and being so engaging. And it's
incredible work from Sam. Yeah, thank you.
Right, thanks. Do you want to say anything, Sam? Well, before we open it to members, no?
Just really briefly, there will be a report coming to the next exec, which is on the 23rd of March, which will give a little bit more background information and have that conversation with members as to whether you want to sign up to this or not, and then how we make sure that we've got the right people on that steering group and that partnership. So we're working across the bay to take this forward. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Have we got any comments or questions from anyone?
Yeah.
Lee? Oh, sorry, hang on. I've got Lee, then Hazel.
I think Hazel was first if she wants to go.
Oh, I don't know. You're top left in my screen. Hazel, go on then.
Right, just as straightforward, really. It's obviously early days, but you are up and running. Is this a proposal? Is it happening? And could you possibly, Claire, let me have a list of the personnel that are involved at the moment, you know, that have set this up? Because, and the reason I ask is that I'm a public governor on Morecambe Bay Health Trust, and this is the first that I know about it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'm sure Andy's probably gonna come in here, but just you're absolutely right with that we're in the very early days for this, and that's one of the reasons why we're here before we take it forward. At this stage, we've just been engaging with the chief execs, and we've come to yourselves today first, and then we're going to be going to the other district councils, and then once we've been to the engage with all the cabinet members, we are going to be presenting to the Bay Health and Care Partners leadership team, and it would be from that point I would suspect that it would be shared wider, because obviously we want to be doing this in partnership. So at this stage we've just been engaging with Aaron Cummins at the hospital trust and got his support, and then it was really important for us to come to yourselves before taking it anywhere else. I don't know if Andy's got anything to add to that.
Yeah, nothing really to add, but just to emphasise that we've only worked with the 3 chief execs from the 3 district councils because we believe this needs to be led by the 3 district councils. And Sam's suggestion was that before we talked to anyone or did anything else, it needed to come to you as the elected representatives, because actually it's vital that this is owned by the public and for the public. So we want it to be led by cabinets. So we're coming to you in a few days' time. We'll be at Lancaster, and then we'll also be going to South Lakes. But we were just really grateful to have the opportunity to come and lay it before you as a potential way of working, to check with you that you wanted to endorse this. I know that Sam doesn't want that discussion to happen yet. There's a further chance for you to have the paper and then to discuss it in more depth. But we didn't. We wanted to be absolutely public and upfront and accountable with this piece of work. And that's the reason why we're coming to you today. In terms of Aaron, he and both Jerry Hawker at the CCG as the 2 chief execs really believe and back this work. And Aaron has just appointed one of his leadership team to lead on this work, and they're now beginning to set up a team within UHMBT, but they haven't had the chance to present it to their board of governors yet. But I know that's in the pipeline.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Lee?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Claire and Andy. It's really good. I think through the work you've done with Sam and our council, you'll probably realise that a lot of this is consistent with our own values and principles as a council, and certainly we're on the path to a lot of this anyway, if we're not there already. So it'd be interesting if we how we score ourselves on all the aspects. That'd be quite interesting to see. I know we're not debating it. I just wondered, and it might not be necessary. I've gone through your documents a bit, but I need to read them properly. If there's any, have you sort of re-evaluated it with COVID recovery in mind? Because a lot of the data on the issues in our communities, obviously we're going to have an immediate spike of certain things that probably wouldn't have presented themselves if you're using data for things like, digital inequalities that people have suffered, and how might that impact them, and the mental health stuff that's spiking certain different cohorts now because of coming out of the pandemic and what people have been through, sudden loss of income and reconnecting with others in the community with a lot of isolation and people sort of experiencing sort of hardships during the pandemic. So I just wondered if you've sort of reviewed it with that in mind. And the final point is, I'm really glad to see the public engagement is mentioned throughout this, because we're trying to flip how we deliver services to be from the ground up. So I think that's a really important aspect of that. I'd probably want that to be quite even more prominent, I think, to press other organisations to do the same. But thanks for your presentation, it's good.
Thanks, Lee. Anne?
Thanks, Chair. As a sub on this committee and not a member, thank you for the presentation. But Sam, I haven't had a copy of all this stuff. Has it already gone out to exec members, or? But if it has, can you please send it out to everybody so we all have an idea? But thank you anyway. It sounds very exciting.
Great. And can I just comment just on what Lee had said earlier as well? One of the great things about the engagement as well is that we're really encouraging and wanting people and organisations to use the freedom to identify their own priorities. We know that people aren't going to be able to, an organisation can't look at the Anchor Charter and do absolutely everything at once, but you can start to align them with what you're already doing. And actually, if you are already engaging with the communities, maybe start to prioritise based on what the communities want and need, which will line up with the COVID epidemic as well.
Thanks, Claire. Have we got any more questions or comments? I can't see any. So we are having a report about this at our next meeting in detail to agree it, and the stuff that Claire was on about that we've had will go out. I mean, we'll get that out to all the members. Obviously, they'll all be attached as agenda items properly when it's to our next meeting, I guess. And I don't know. I did sociology at university, and I learned all about the interreaction of things. Now, our healthcare shouldn't just be up to the GP and the hospital, and now we're all in it together, and all the different things that make a difference. And I still can't believe, I mean, that was over 40 years ago, because I'm quite old. I can't believe it's actually still taking so long to join things up for our communities that we all trying to support. You know, it's not just, you know, we empty the litter and you give them the drugs to, you know, get better and all that stuff. We're all in it together. And so I look forward to receiving the detailed report at our next meeting. And did somebody just put their hand up then when I was, no?
You've just earned a place on the steering group, Derek.
All right. Well, I'm sure all that stuff I learned all those years ago is still relevant. Exactly.
It's everyone's place in the system, isn't it?
Yeah. So have we all had enough? Yes. Have we? So we look forward to another report on that at the next meeting. And thank you very much for coming. Have a safe journey back. You are welcome to stay, I suppose. Although you might have something else to do. I don't know.
Thank you for your time today. We know everyone's super busy, so thank you, and look forward to progressing this and hearing your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Right. Oh, I've got to get my, hang on, the next item. Let's have a look. Where are we? Let's have a look. Where are we? It's the next item. Right, next item is agenda item 9, the right to regenerate consultation. Would Helen Houston, Development Services Manager, presenting this report, please? Somewhere? Helen?
I think, Chair, Helen's experiencing technical difficulty.
Should we do the next one then, and then come back? All the pictures are moving around on here when somebody comes and goes. Do we want to? Should we do item 10 then, and then come back to it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Joyce can pick up the right to regenerate, if that would help.
You, David?
I can try, certainly, right. Chair.
Go on then, we'll stay on item 9 then, and David's going to do it. All right.
Okay, I do apologise, I will have to refer to the document itself. Basically, the report is or concerns a government consultation in respect. Sorry, can everybody hear me okay? I'm having problems with my internet as well. The report concerns a consultation process that the government have thrown out in respect of the right to regenerate. The report is there to inform members of the proposed response to the consultation which officers have attached to this report. So the report itself is basically that exec recommend and note the contents of the report and endorse the council's response to the consultation on right to regenerate. Just as a potted background, not quite sure how many people know or are interested in the right to regenerate, but previous legislation back in 1980 introduced a right to contest, which in brief was a right for the public to look at council-owned land and property, and if that council land and property was underused or not used at all, it would give the public a right to request a purchase or transfer of the land. This report basically is looking to update that right to contest legislation. The government are looking, as I've said, to introduce a right to regenerate. And again, that will give the public, if adopted, the right to approach the council, any council, and ask or request to use or purchase unused land and property. So it will have quite, if adopted, quite an impact on the council. However, having said that, the original right to contest I think Helen has put in the report, received only 192 requests from 2014 from the actual public. So it wasn't a profound, overwhelming piece of legislation. But as I've said, it will impact on the council, because the council will have to look, and the report does briefly touch on this. The impact will be that the council have to look at their land and property assets, designate their land and property assets, and identify any surplus assets. It is hoped that process will be conducted through the Strategic Asset Management Plan, which will be adopted hopefully in the coming months. The plan will identify a surplus register. So indeed, even if this legislation is adopted, the council will be in a situation to respond with a surplus register, and be able to respond to the public in any requests that are erected. So I think in essence that's it. I don't know if Steph has any further comments on it. The actual responses of officers are contained in the appendix of the report. That's pretty much the essence of it, Chair.
Right, are we up? Have we got any further? Have we got any comments or questions? Alan?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just a quickie. Would these reforms help with the problem of the old paper mill site, which has held the council to ransom for years, affecting house building and regeneration plans? And will it get rid of this eyesore for us?
Well, I think if in our comments in the appendix, we have identified that the majority of sites that are underused are actually in private ownership. So the problem sites that we have across the borough are, to all intent and purposes, privately owned sites, and that includes Salthouse Mills and other such sites. So hopefully, I believe the legislation is actually more directed towards local authority assets, but it will drag in, I believe, the private sector.
Okay, thanks.
We got any more? Hazel?
Can I ask, is there anywhere that we can, I mean, the public must have access to it if they can challenge this. Can we see a list, just a bullet point list of the council's assets with land and buildings? Or can we have one?
Not quite sure if Steph wants to answer that for myself, but I will answer. I can answer that. We can provide a list. We do have a register of all the council's land and property assets. The database is held both in estates and finance, so that can be made available to members. We do make surplus assets available to the public, and through the up and coming Strategic Asset Management Plan, again, that will reinforce the asset database and the listings within the database in respect of operational, non-operational and surplus assets.
Yeah, thanks. I don't mean anything in any great detail. A list would do. I know we can look at a map, but a map is not like a list, you know.
We can produce a list, yes, we do have a list of assets.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like maps, Hazel. What's wrong with maps?
I can also provide a map if you like.
No, I'm not bothered about that. We can look at that.
Right, have we, do we, right, we haven't got any more questions, no? Don't think so. Helen's got away without having to do a report. Sneaked off somewhere. Can we Right, can we just agree the recommendation then? Yeah? Yes? Looks like it? Yes. Splendid. Right, agenda item 10, anti-litter strategy. It says here that Steph Cordenau, our Director of People and Places, is going to present it. Are you?
I'll introduce it and then I'll pass over to John Byford for the...
Pass over the work to somebody else. Excellent. Good idea.
So in the council plan, there's a lot of actions around how we will work with people around fostering positive attitudes to keeping our areas clean. We will work with FCC, who's our external contractor, who delivers our street cleansing and litter bin emptying service to make sure they do their job effectively. And we'll be tough on those that blight our neighbourhoods with fly tipping, litter and dog fouling. So the purpose of this report is to introduce an anti-litter strategy, which kind of picks up those themes around education, enforcement and infrastructure. So the strategy sort of provides the how and what are we going to do around council statutory responsibilities, around making sure that we keep our areas tidy and clean and work with local people and visitors to change behaviour. So I'll pass over to John for the detail, who, as you rightly say, has done the majority of the work on this.
Thank you. Yeah, the strategy, I had a look for one when I first came and couldn't find anything that was in place. And as it says in the report, we did make a bid for some grant money for litter bins, but a prerequisite of that was having an anti-litter and litter bin strategy. As it turned out, we were unsuccessful with our bid, but I think it was well worth doing the work anyway to try and get a strategy together. The main driver, though, has been that FCC were awarded the contract, as you know, in 2017. And when that contract was awarded, it was purely based on schedule cleansing, and everything was set out when everything had to happen. In about 2019, that was changed to a responsive action that just relies on returning areas that get littered back to clean within particular time limits. But it's very, very difficult to monitor. And Marie Richards has been working with FCC over the last couple of months, trying to get a happy balance between the two, getting some more scheduled cleansing back in, but still leaving enough room for responsive work, you know, for fly tipping and such, like where you get litter hotspots. So we'll have enough resources there to go and deal with those. And part of the strategy is about litter bins as well. And like most councils in the country that I've worked in, the provision of litter bins has sort of evolved. People keep requesting things and they get them put in, but there isn't really any science behind why they're there. There aren't, as you'll see in the strategy, what I'm suggesting is that wherever you get one requested in future, that you do a litter survey and make sure that it's going to be worth putting the bin in before you go to the expense of doing it, to find out that it isn't really used as much as people think it would be. We have a lot of bins out there that are getting overfilled, and we need to look at the frequency of that, which we're doing now. But some the operators are going to, and there aren't ever anything in it. Also, there's a real range of different colours and styles and all sorts of things out there, sometimes very close to each other, which doesn't make the street scene look very good either. So what I've tried to do is put the strategy together so that we know going forward what criteria we're going to base everything on. I've also looked at introducing a policy on littering for the offensive littering, and also for one particular thing that really annoys me in particular, but I'm sure annoys all the residents and the councillors there, is litter from vehicles. And it's not only stuff that's thrown out from vehicles, it's stuff that is blown off vehicles that are not secured properly. Very often waste that's being transported about by people after they've done jobs and things. It all comes flying out the back of the truck, and it is an offence, and we need to be cracking down on these people. Once you start prosecuting a few people for this offence, in a small area like Barrow, the word will get round and hopefully it will reduce. But one of the main things we're looking at with the officers is concentrated on certain areas at a time. Instead of trying to do everything at once, what we want to do is have a time spent on maybe dog fouling for a week or maybe 2 weeks, and concentrate on that so we can get the message out about that, and then switch to something else like the littering from vehicles or littering in the street, or going into the side, as we brought to in previous policies, the side waste issues in the back lanes of fly tipping. So it's just trying to concentrate on certain things rather than just muddling along as we seem to have been doing for a while. And I say it's just to concentrate the mind on doing a proper job out there. And that's really it in a nutshell.
All right, thanks, John. Have we got any questions from anyone? Hazel?
Not so much a question as to say, thank goodness. I think it's an excellent report. If everything happened that was in this strategy, we'd have a clean town. It's interesting to read about those special bins. I was saying that to Sam, you know, that have the Wi-Fi thing on so that a message goes back to the crew to say that the bin is full. I hope that we can acquire some of these in the future. And I really, you know, if John has done all this, thank you, John. I think it's a way forward.
Right, thanks. I think Kevin's next.
It's like arm wrestling, try to get that mute button off. Absolutely brilliant, John, Steph, well done. But the only thing I'd try to find out, who's the authorised officer to issue the fines? Are we talking about street care, parking attendants, park rangers, or an whole plethora of officers, or who are we talking about there for an authorised officer?
Sorry, yeah, the street care officers are the ones. There are some other officers that are authorised. They all have a list of certain offences that they can deal with, and we've got Pete Buckley is the main one I've been dealing with, and we have 2 other street care officers as well. But I think Steph's looking to change the way that they're working. Now we've been introducing all these enforcement policies, so she may want to broaden on that or not.
Can I come back, Chair?
Oh, yeah, go on then. I've seen you've got your hand up, Wendy. You're all right. You don't have to. You're all right. Yeah, go on.
It just seems a bit strange that you either Maria, Jill, or Peter will give a fine and they're out the way, then walking down the street, and you got the parking attendants on the way to a car park, and they see someone drop, even though they're employed by the borough or whatever, and they can't do nothing. Or you go in the park and you got a park ranger walking around, and people drop it down. So I think it's a far bigger thing than just street care. And thanks, Chair.
Where are we now? Right, thanks, Kevin. Alan and then Wendy.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, an excellent report, John. Trying to be constructive. You say that in Appendix 1, page 45, item 7B, providing litter bins in the right place is not a simple task. I think that once we find out the answer to this is to stop getting litter off full bins spilling over. Once we've identified the area, the popular areas where this is happening on a regular occasion, we could put an extra bin there so that rather than more frequent visits to empty the bin, which could be more expensive, I suppose, the second bin would act as an overflow, and I think that would be a better way to do it, or might help anyway in solving the problem. One of the other things I feel is one of the problems is that contractors tend not to do what they're being paid to do. And street cleaning with the wagon going round sweeping up the curbs and the gutters, I don't think it is doing the number of times that it's supposed to do and what they're getting paid for. It's very difficult for the officers to deal with this. I mean, Marie does a wonderful job on the grass cutting, but to find out the problems on the street cleaning is usually left to the public complaining when it gets to a really serious problem. And I have noted one of the sweeping wagons going down, and I know Furnace Park Road is not a real problem, but I believe in the contract it should be done once a week, and the last year it went for about 14 weeks before it was done. Now I know that isn't the problem, but the problem is, how do the council staff know that the contractor is doing what they're paid to do? And I don't know the answer to that, probably. Thank you.
Alan,
I could just come in to answer that.
sorry, John, I was just going to pick that up and say, Alan, I'm happy to have a conversation offline about the contract monitoring arrangements that can pick up some of your concerns.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Steph.
Right, Wendy.
These bins that tell you or let them know when they're full, we could really do with them in Dalton. We have 2 bins in particular that the kids use. They're very, very near to a takeaway and a chip shop, and at lunchtime they're absolutely overflowing. Sometimes they come round and empty them in the morning, but unfortunately that's from the night before. By lunchtime they're filled up again, 2 in particular. But the kids sit in the bus lay-by and eat the chips in there and leave all the litter in there. So really, although we've got 2 bins in close proximity, which do get full, it would be nice if we could have a 3rd one, because when the kids come out at lunchtime, it is a nightmare and the bins get full very, very easily. And I would like to see more bins in Dalton that can take poo properly. I mean, they do put them in the ordinary bin, but it'd be nice if we had some dog bins, especially for when they go through little fields and they go down Beckside Road and places like that. I've been out walking of late. It's better than it was, but it's still not good. So, you know, we could do with a lot more in Dalton. It's a nightmare for the litter. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure Dalton will be part of it, Wendy. It is part of the borough, allegedly.
It's not always what we want, fortunately, Derek. We feel left out sometimes.
I know. Lee?
Thanks, Derek. I think it's quite, it sounds obvious, you know, having a policy for something to address some of the issues, but it is quite refreshing instead of just being reactive to that bin's overflowing, so put a bigger one there. To have different strategies for different causes of littering, and to have that and to roll out the solutions by using technology about the sensors in bins is a great idea. But to do that hand in hand with concentrating on the sense of pride people have in the environment, and to address that sort of sense of responsibility everybody has. You know, the causes of littering generally is people a lot of time when it's on places of like beauty and our beaches and coastlines. So it has to go hand in hand with the responsibility and education, which I'm glad that's a big part of our policy to do this. And it's not as simple as it sounds sometimes, is it, John? And I remember I went to the LGA conference in Bournemouth, and there was a presentation by Leeds Council, I think it was, where they were saying that they tried to encourage on-street recycling sort of in the sort of city centres and stuff like that. And they monitored some of the use of the bins because they were getting confused why they had like 3 bins next to each other for separating your waste. And because one of the bins had something you had to touch with your hand, like a lid, so if it was anti-seagull or whatever. And they found that people wouldn't use that bin because you had to touch the bin with their hands. So sometimes it's not as straightforward as you imagine. So it is a complicated subject. So to have a strategy and to use, I think there's a term in there called binfrastructure, which amused me. To have that sort of strategy and use some really sort of progressive sort of proactive stuff, I think it's really refreshing. So hopefully we'll be successful and we can see big changes in our environment. But thank you for the work. It's a good piece of work.
Have we got any more? Can't see any more. Can we not have some bin drones that go around and collect it out of your hand when you're walking down the street or something?
They're called drones.
All right. Right. Have we got any more? Have we got any more questions? No, don't look like it. So do we?
Oh, yeah, the mover and the second, please.
Do we?
Yes.
Right. I'll go on then. Somebody move it, somebody second it, and then everybody agree.
I'll move it.
Second it, Wendy. Are we all agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Super. Thanks very much. That's probably you done, John. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. Right. Next one. Where are we on to now? 11. Corporate register. John Penfold. It says on here, corporate support manager. Going to do risk register. Is that right?
Yep. Thank you, Chair. The corporate risk register is reviewed monthly by management team, and then it goes to the audit and governance committee on a quarterly basis. Quarterly by management team. Goes to audit and governance committee on a quarterly basis as well. Because of the impact of COVID, there are a lot of risks which are a higher score than they would be normally. So we thought it was a good idea to bring it to the executive committee so you can see what the changes are and what mitigations we put in place. So the way we deal with this, and this is all in the risk policies that came through this committee in 2018, we can either tolerate the risk and accept that, you know, sometimes things will go wrong. We can treat the risk, which is what we mainly do, and introduce mitigating actions to minimise the impact. We can terminate the risk, which is quite difficult, but we have done it in the past, and we can transfer the risk to a third party, which is what we do with some of our contractors. We just talked about waste. When we outsource the waste contract, the contractor does pick up a number of risks associated with waste. So if we go down to the risk register, the way it looks is that each risk is given a reference number, a short description of what the risk is, the potential consequences if that happens, and then the existing controls and mitigations we put in place. And then either side of that, we have the inherent risk score, which is what would happen if we do nothing. And on the other side, on the right-hand side, it's the mitigated risk score, which will be lower than the inherent risk score. So they're all listed there. I'm sure you've all read them. If you've got any questions on those, I'll be happy to answer them.
Right, thanks, John. We got any questions? Doesn't look like it. So we're all happy with the report. We don't have to have just note it, yeah? Yeah. Right. Thank you. And it's another one from you, John. You've got 3 on here today.
I have,
What's going
yeah.
on?
Hat trick.
Right, go on then. Number 12, fair trade.
Fair trade report. So both Barrow and Dalton achieved fair trade status in the past, and both were due for renewal in 2015. But neither Barrow nor Dalton renewed its fair trade status because they're normally driven by a steering group, which is not part of the council. It's by community groups within the areas. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of support at that time. But since then, Fair Trade for Furness has been established. And what that would like to do is now go for a fair trade borough. So it's Barrow and Dalton, and the rest of them are included in a fair trade borough. We have to meet 5 criteria in order to achieve, well, to renew our fair trade status. The first one is for it to be approved by Barrow Borough Council. In this case, it's the executive because we've already achieved the status and all we're doing is renewing it. The others are restaurants, pubs, shops selling fair trade products. I think most of the stores you go into now sell fair trade products, and there is a definite market for them. So we won't have any problems achieving them. And then the 5th one is the actually having a steering group. There's a steering group already established, and members of the council have already expressed an interest in joining that steering group. So I don't think we'll have any problems in achieving the renewal of our fair trade status. That's it.
Right, thanks, John. We got any comments or questions? Wendy?
John, are Dalton aware that they're coming in under Barrow with the fair trade?
Yes, in a simple as yeah. I've been working with Anne Thurlow and the lady who drives the fair trade for Furness. I've been working with her as well, Catherine Aldred, and they're all aware that they want to pull it together as a fair trade borough rather than 2 separate fair trade towns.
That's fine. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Right. Are we all supportive of this? Are we?
Could we have a mover and second, Chairman?
Do we have to move it? Go on then.
I'll move it.
Second there.
I'll second it.
Right. Are we all agreed? Fair trade borough, here we come. Splendid. Right. Presumably we'll receive some not regular, but we'll receive updates on what's going on about it, John. Presumably.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah. Good. Right. Next one. This is your last one. Regulation of investigatory. I can't read it out. Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000. Ripper. Should have just read that bit. Go on.
Yeah. Right. So this is a review of the Ripper operation between the 1st of January 2020 and the 31st of January 2021. It's actually 13 months rather than just a year. And we didn't do any. We haven't done any since 2010. But the council can use Ripper as part of its enforcement. So if we want to do covert surveillance, that means surveillance where the people we're looking at don't know we're doing it, we have to apply for Ripper. In 2012, the Ripper rules were changed slightly. And in order for you to be able to use Ripper, the offence must carry a 6-month custodial sentence, and you also have to get approval by a magistrate before you can use Ripper. So that significantly reduced the number of Ripper cases that we tend to have. Where we might still use it is if a licensed premises was regularly selling alcohol to under 16s, because we can still use it for that sort of thing, even though it doesn't carry those sentences. So as I say, we haven't had a RIPA application for 10 years. We do, however, get inspected on a 3-yearly basis, and we are due an inspection in 2021. The one we had in 2018 was actually a remote inspection, so it's just a matter of filling in a questionnaire and sending it off, and they were happy with what we'd done. There was a couple of changes they wanted. In terms of resilience, they wanted us to have more authorising officers. So at the time, there was Phil Hook, who was the Executive Director, Keith Johnson, who was the Assistant Director of Community Services, and myself. Obviously, Phil's gone now, so we do need to get another person trained up to authorise RIPA applications, and the Head of Legal and Governance has put herself forward to do that. So I will be arranging training later on this year. Oh, sorry, the second thing they wanted to do was we have a spreadsheet where we record our RIPA applications, and they wanted us to put in a column saying the date we got approval from a magistrate.
Right, thanks, John. Have we got any questions about this? Doesn't look like it. Are we happy with it? Do I have to get a second and a mover and a seconder again?
We do, please.
Right, can somebody move and second the recommendations, please?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Seconder, please, anybody? Somebody somewhere. Stick a hand up. Wendy.
Council Maddox.
Right. Splendid. That's it.
Right,
thanks, John. You can go now and do whatever you do.
I'll go and walk the dogs. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. Right, now then, item 14. Sue Roberts is going to present our financial plans and strategies for 2020-2022. Oh, God, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? It's all yours, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. So this report's got 3 key documents that relate to the budget and financial resilience. Normally these would have come along with the budget pack early February, but timing just meant that they followed a little bit later. So all of the financial implications that follow from these documents are recognised in the 2021-22 budget already. So the first one is they're all appended to the medium-term plan. So that's a projection of 21-22 budgets out to a medium term, so that's 24-25, to look at any funding gaps, action needed, and to recognise the underlying assumptions and risks that have been kind of incorporated in those projections. So the projections are summarised in the report. You can see there's a balanced position with reserves being used for one-off items over that whole period. That's for things such as the major projects, transformation projects, all very much one-off. Reserves aren't used to support revenue. Recurring expenditure is just one-off items. So having that balanced position is positive, but emphasises again the need to realign what we've got internally to deliver the priorities. We've not got sort of spare money to do new things, but we need to do new things. So we do that by internal restructure around those priorities that have been identified. So when those changes occur, the medium-term plan will be revised to like show that alignment of resource, so that we can show to members when those decisions are happening, there is not like an increase in budget, it's just a shift internally. So that's likely to actually to be a quarterly review along with the rest of council finances from now on. So it'll be that little table that's in the report, I'll bring that each time. The Treasury Management Strategy Statement, that's quite a formal presentation. The way it's set out is quite regulated, and it's looking at the prudential and Treasury indicators for the year ahead. We look further, but it's actually only sort of setting the next year. It's capital, cash management, affordability, those type of Treasury management aspects. And in specifically the authorised limit of borrowings picked out, the regulations need a specific resolution to set that figure. That's a ceiling, if you like, for the whole year, that borrowing and any daily requirements on cash can't exceed that without full council's authorisation. So it is fairly high because it's not meant to ever be breached. The capital strategy is the third document appended, and that sets out the context for setting the capital programme up, basically. So it's where do the resources come from, how are they allocated, what are the projects and priorities. So the programme for this year forward, so 2020 to 2025 is included. And I have noted in that there's a need for 1.7 million of receipts to make the programme fully funded. The way we control that is through the timing of things. So we won't commission projects in later years until that financing is identified. There are certain assets identified to sell, and including we get income when right to buy sales happen. That they're all sort of scooped up into that capital programme, but we can control the pacing of that in the future years. And these three, because they're part of the budget, they're all part of the policy framework, so they're recommended up to council for approval, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sue. Have we got any questions? Alan?
Don't say it like that. Okay.
I thought we were going to get through this without a question then, when you just popped your hand up.
2 or 3 little items there. So
yeah,
page 94, the contracts. Why are we giving contractors a 2% annual increase when A, we're not always happy with their performances and having to complain to them? B, inflation is well below 2%, and C, the public sector workers' wages are being frozen because of the pandemic effect on the national economy, and we're giving these people 2%. And I just like to know why that is the case. Secondly, and this is close to my heart, I've brought it up on a few occasions, and I look at the weather today and it's reminded me of it. Page 128. You've got £100,000 capital expenditure on the cemetery in 2021-22. And I brought this up many times. I've had sympathetic answers and kicks from one person to the next person and back again. Promises. Can we have a little extension or conservatory on the crematorium to accommodate people wishing to look at the Book of Remembrance in a warm and comfortable place while they have a few moments of peace and tranquility to remember their loved ones or say a little prayer or two? I think it's not a lot to ask. We've spent millions on the crematorium, and before the repairs and that was put in, they had this room to go and sit and the third item, 2022-23, the Peel Island Ferry, £70,000 in the capital budget. Are we taking over responsibility for the ferry at the expense of the local operator, or are we purchasing an electric powered boat for the current operator to use? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, sorry, thank you. The first question about inflation, the percentages disclosed in the assumptions are my prudent kind of setting money aside in case. I'm not saying we're going to pay those amounts to anybody, but I have to provide in case, you know, in case inflation turns a different way and we end up having to pay. There are elements within those contracts that will still inflate, even though pay may not. Some of them have got fuel and other material supplies in there, so there will be, I'm sure, some element of inflation, but that is not a guarantee that's what we're going to be paying over. It is just me trying to be cautious and setting money aside each year in the plan. So it's not. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I have to take a view that I have to provide something for them. So that's my 2%. It is entirely mine, and it's not reflected in what we're going to pay them. With the funding in the capital programme, that funding at the cemetery is actually allocated already for not for that building. It's actually for the gateway and the chapel behind the crematorium building. I will have to, I know you don't want me to take it away, but I will have to take it away because I don't know the answer to the extension works. I will have to come back to you on that. And the Peel Island question, we're not taking over the operation of the ferry in any shape or form. It is looking at the provision of the boat and as part of low carbon barrel, what that could be. So it's got its own line in the programme because it needs more work, but it's definitely not taking over the service.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
I'm glad to hear you being prudent, Sue, because if you weren't, you'd get out of the Treasurers Union, wouldn't you?
I would. Should change my name, Prudence.
Yeah. Got any more questions anywhere? Comments? No, doesn't look like it. Do I need a mover and a seconder again?
Yes, please.
Go on then. Bev, are you moving that? Or do you just sticking your hand up? Right, Bev's moving it and Lee's seconding it, I think.
Yeah.
Right, we all agreed? Yes. Right, next one, item 15, Barrow Business Improvement District, and that's Keith. It's all yours.
You said there'd be problems with muting. I hope I've managed it. Thank you, Chair. This paper is about the Barrow Business Improvement District. Members will know that a business improvement district is a business-led and business-funded body that has its reason to exist to make improvements to a geographically defined area. The bid was established in Barrow Town Centre in September 2016 after a successful ballot of those eligible bid payers. I'm sure members will be aware of this, but it stands repeating. The bid area was broadly defined by the area within Rawlinson Street, Abbey Road, Hindpool Road and Greengate Street. So if you can visualise that kind of rectangular shape of the town centre. The current 5-year term of the bid comes to an end on the 31st of October 2021. And what the bid is seeking to do is to seek to have a further 5-year term. And in order to do that, they have to request the District Council that they can undertake a second ballot to actually set that second term up. As part of the paper, we've attached the draft proposal from the bid for the second term. And we have to satisfy ourselves of 3 things. Firstly, that the proposal contains all the info that's required by the bid regulations. Relevant officers have looked at that and we are satisfied that that is the case. We also have to be satisfied that the proposal doesn't conflict with any of the council's plans, policies or strategies for that particular area. And again, officers have examined the proposal and we find that that's the case. We also have to be satisfied that the bid proposer has undertaken a satisfactory level of consultation within the relevant business community. And within the paper, we've set out how we've been given assurances that that consultation has taken place and continues to take place. The bid proposal is a lengthy document. It does take some reading. I'm sure members will have looked at it, but I've just picked out the key areas, I think. They're focusing around 4 themes. The first theme being a busier Barrow, and the actions that will underpin that strand will be marketing and promotion. The second theme will be brighter Barrow, and that's all about improving the environment of the bid area. The third theme is better Barrow, and that's going to be underpinned by things like events, heritage preservation, targeting assistance for specific businesses within the town. And the fourth is what they call bounce back, and that will be the bids plan to assist businesses within the area to recover from the effects of the pandemic, and to look at things like making specific grants and training opportunities available for businesses within the area. So what this paper asks members to do is to agree the draft proposal renewals for the Business Improvement District as being in compliance with the statutory requirements, and that they're not in conflict with the Council's policy framework. It asks that power be delegated to the Chief Executive to approve the final renewal proposals and the issue of an instruction to proceed with the ballot. And we'll formally manage the ballot process in accordance with the bid regulations. Subject to the renewal ballot proceeding, the paper asks members to authorise the Director of People, Place or her designated officer in consultation with the leader to vote in relation to the Borough Council's votes. Members should be aware that the Council is also a levy payer. We have 25 hereditaments in the Business Improvement District area, which means we'll get 25 votes. So this paper asks that the Director of People and Place, in consultation with the leader of the Council, cast those votes in the way that we decide. It also asks that, subject to a yes vote at ballot, the Council, as the relevant authority, will manage the billing and collection of the levy and transfer the receipts to the bid company. And the final thing that we're asking for in this paper is that the members authorise the Assistant Director of Community Services, that's me, to ensure that the arrangements are appropriately formulated and that the final operating agreement with the Council and the baseline agreements that we give to them are appropriately set up. One thing I didn't mention that I think is worth saying is that the second proposal is looking for a slight change to the geographic area. In the area that I described earlier on, there are 460 eligible non-business rate payers. But what the second proposal will do is to increase that to 469. The proposal introduces a slight change to the geographic area. And the best way to describe it is that it's a slight dogleg, and it will take in the new Alfred Barrow Health Centre, and that will add a few properties to the geographic area. So I'm conscious I've spoken for a long time. If anybody's got any questions, I'll do my very best to answer them.
All right, thanks, Keith. Before members do make any comment, I think it's fair to say this is not the time and place to say whether you're for or against the bid. This is about giving authority for the bid proposal to go ahead for the ballot, not to agree or disagree with anything. Is that right? That's correct, isn't it? So we will be getting, I think, an informal briefing from the bid at some point about what's actually in the plan. But this is about the ability to go forward, because we basically supervise the bid ballot. So that's what this is about, not whether we think we should be for or against it. All right, sorry about that, but there you go. All yours now. If anybody's got any questions or comments. Doesn't look like it. So do we, I need a mover and a seconder to agree the recommendations again.
Move it, Chair.
Kevin's moved it, and
I'll second it.
By the look of it. Splendid. Right. So the next one is agenda item 16, corporate community lettings policy. So this is David.
You're on mute, David.
Sorry. I'll hold my hand up and follow Keith. Sorry. Back to the report. Corporate community lettings policy. The report looks at a proposed corporate policy for letting of council land and property assets to the community sector. The policy is, I believe, attached to Appendix 1. And in essence, the policy is an attempt to set out a clear, simple and defined approach to community lettings. The policy is an attempt to, rather than have an ad hoc system, the policy is looking to ensure that all lettings, community lettings and property transfers are undertaken in a consistent, fair and transparent manner. The policy as such aligns itself with the council's plan. The policy also will align itself, hopefully, with other public sector organisation initiatives, such as the NHS proposal for the Morecambe Bay Anchor Collaborative that you heard about earlier in this committee. So it is about using buildings and spaces to support the local community. It is about having a framework that we can follow and apply to each and every property asset that the council have. The recommendation is that exec committee approve the corporate community lettings policy and confirm the delegation to officers for approval of such lettings as detailed in the policy. So very briefly, that's about the sum of it, Chair.
Right, thanks, David. Any comments or questions, anyone? Bev?
Yeah, thanks for the report. I'd like to see something in there that, if it's not already in there, because there's delegated decisions in there about ward members being informed of any kind of community lettings in their ward prior to that that letting taking place. I think it's important that, you know, members don't find out after the fact, and if it's not included in the in this policy, it'd be really useful to have perhaps something in the constitution, like a catch-all, you know, comment or something that says that, you know, whenever there's a delegated decision that impacts on a ward, that ward member is informed in advance, because we do get in situations sometimes where we find out, you know, after the fact or perhaps through the local press. So it would be quite nice, especially with, you know, with community letters. This is a great idea, and it, you know, as a ward councillor, it'd be really good to know in advance if that's okay. So thank you.
From an estate's point of view, that's not a problem at all. We can report back accordingly through the appropriate channels. I'm not sure if Steph wants to comment further on that particular point.
I think it's a great idea to include it and to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Debbie says, oh, yeah, go on, Debbie, sorry.
Just to follow on from that, Chair, I mean, I think it'd probably be good to incorporate within the actual policy document, because the next report brings up the constitutional changes, but it's probably clearer because it's in accordance with the lettings protocol. So maybe if members wish to see it, we'll just add a line in that says in consultation with, or ward members advised, whichever your preference is in the actual policy itself when you adopt it.
Yeah, do we want advised, or what were those two words you said then? Advised or
consulted?
Consulted.
I think Derek, we're not intending to change the delegated decision. It's about informing.
Just want to be advised.
Yeah, we just want to be
Okay.
informed happening.
Right, we all right with that? Oh, Lee, got your hand up. Lee?
To add to that, I think advice would be sufficient, because as sort of community leaders in our wards, we might be aware of other organisations that are looking to do things, and we might have that sort of wider picture of what's happening in the wards. So just to be advised of it, we can actually feed back in some advice to either other groups or to actually the council on the best use of properties. But I think overall we did need something like this to make it clear the criteria that we will expect when we're using our assets for the benefit of the community. But yeah, certainly I think advice is the best way.
We all right with that then? Right, do I have to?
Or have a mover and seconder, please.
Mover and a seconder. Right.
I'll move it, Chair.
Go on. Kevin's moved it.
I'll second it.
Lee seconded it. And Debbie's going to tweak it. Yeah. I could twerk it, I suppose, but tweak it or twerk it, whichever one suits. Right, next one. Where are we on to now? Annual review of the Constitution. Debbie, you're back on again straight away.
Thank you. This is kind of whilst it's going to become an annual review, it's more of a bit of an interim review this year, because I did quite a full one last year, back in June, members will recall, but there are things sort of happening all of the time. So I'm sort of picking up where we are at the present. So this is just asking for some minor tweaks to the officer and proper officer delegations. You'll note it's picked up me becoming one of the REPA representatives, and also it picks up the previous agenda item, if that was approved, to include that within the officer delegations. Additionally, there are some suggestions to the financial regulations and the contract standing orders. This is very much an interim review, and I think further work will be done on that over the coming year, as we hopefully have a little bit more time to give that fuller attention. And we'll also pick up on some of the procurement stuff that's coming through as well there. Audit and Governance Committee approved recommendations to Council, which will be going to the next Council meeting with regards to standards arrangements. So that will incorporate a hearings panel if there are any formal investigations which may or may not lead to a hearing. So that's incorporated in there. And there's just one thing I wanted to bring up that's not actually mentioned in my report, Chair, so apologies for that, but I'll make sure it's in the Council report. Was reference, I'm conscious that the virtual meetings regulations currently run until the 7th of May, and the Constitution makes references to that date, and we have our virtual meetings protocol. But what I'm proposing or suggesting to members that they recognise that those regulations may run on beyond the 7th of May. So I was just going to tweak the wording to reflect that is the case. But at the moment, that is very much up in the air. We're waiting for government to see whether or not it makes any additions or extends the virtual meeting regulations. And I know work's going on with ADSO and Local Government Association. Potentially, I think there's a court hearing being presented today to seek a declaration that maybe the 72 Act could be used to enable virtual meetings to be continued, but we're awaiting legal decisions on that. So it's just to give us a flexibility to recognise that things are ongoing, and hopefully by the time I come to my next review, we'll be a bit more certain and we can firm up that moving forward.
Super, thank you. And when we do have a real meeting, we'll have to have fair trade coffee, won't we? Right, have we got any questions or comments on that?
Councillor
Hazel? Hazel?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Debbie, because you're going to have to plough through all this lot to find what I'm referring to. All I want is an explanation because I can't understand it. It's Appendix 1, page 203, 1.6. I'll give you a chance to, I'll read it while you're looking for it. It says to consider any request for a review by any owner with regards to a decision to approve a nomination to the council's list of assets of community value. I haven't got a clue what that means. Can you explain it to me?
It might be easy for me to provide a written answer, but there is people can apply to put assets on the community asset register, and then that prevents somebody selling them unless people have been given a first chance of refusal within a certain time period, if I remember. So I think it's the decision whether or not to go on the register is with the Director of People and Place, but then there's a right of appeal, I think, to the Chief Executive. But I might just, can I just send you a written?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, fine. Thank you. I'm not going to agree to this till I know what it is.
It's a process, but it's a fairly straightforward process, and the delegation is carried out within a set criteria. So I can, by the time of the council meeting, I can provide you with the written response after the meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah, fair enough. It's not delegated anyway, is it? Thank you.
No, it's going to full council because it's constitutional changes.
Thank you.
It's already delegated at the moment anyway. It's existing, but I can certainly provide clarity for you.
Thank you.
Right, Kevin.
Thanks, Chair. Do we all get a copy of the letter, because I can't understand it neither?
Yes, sorry. Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's a constitution. Nobody ever understands these things. It's just the way it is, isn't it? Right. We need a mover and a seconder. Have we got any more questions or comments? No. So mover and a seconder, it does, apparently it's to council anyway. So if you're not happy with the response, we can amend it, or I don't know, review it accordingly, I guess. So have we got a mover and a seconder?
Yeah, I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Right. Are we all agreed? Yeah. Yeah. Right. And we look forward to receiving that letter, Debbie. Splendid. Right, what are we on to now? Oh, item 18, housing first transitional housing model. So this is Jan, it says on here, but I can't see her. Is it?
I'm here. No.
Oh, there you are. Oh, it's got, it hasn't got your name on.
I know. Our operations manager is going to present this report as she's the author. Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, the Housing First, it's an intervention model which supports homeless people with multiple complex needs. Most commonly that relates to mental health issues or alcohol and drug misuse. And it helps them maintain independent housing. So historically, we've seen a gap in the provision due to the nature and overlap between support needs. Our homeless advice team consistently work with individuals and residents that are either in treatment with Unity or frequent admissions to Furness General Hospitals, sofa surfers, homeless clients, prison leavers, and they're constantly working to try and reduce and detoxify them from drugs and alcohol substances. The clients are often in insecure accommodation or accommodation that's not conducive to their recovery plan. and they're often transitioning from emergency housing into generic housing when really it isn't appropriate for them. So this model that we've developed in partnership with the Well Communities links in with our key priority 2 of the Homelessness and Rough Sleepers strategy, which runs from 2020 to 2025, preventing people from becoming homeless as early as possible. And it also links in with our council plan and the actions within People in Place. The council is looking to convert a disused council dwelling into 4 self-contained units, with the Well Communities providing housing and social support, and that will be supplemented by clinical and psychological professional local support. At present, some of our complex clients who are not abstinence-free are not eligible for supported housing projects, and this we find is a real gap that is preventing them from sustaining tenancies and going back into that revolving door approach to us. So by having transitional housing recovery, we can move between abstinence and transitional housing and ensure that we've got the right support and that conditions are made available to the individuals to prevent homelessness at the earliest opportunity, and then move them on into more generic housing once that piece of work has been done with them. So we're really positive about this piece of work. It really would be a shining example model really across the county. I know Jan and I have been in various county meetings where it's not just Barrow, it is a gap across all districts. But we do feel quite positive that we've moved quite a long way with this, and it is being looked on by the other districts. So what we're asking really is that members note the content of the report, approve that Jan as our Assistant Director can progress this Housing First model, and will continue to make discussions with the Well, who have got experience of the specialist housing support. We're also looking, we have monthly meetings with our HCLG advisor, who has advised that there is another funding round due to come out, which this transitional model would fit with. So we're asking that we can prepare a bid for funding to the MHCLG, and we will bring back a future report to the Exec Committee to update on our business model and where we're up to with delivering it. Is there any questions?
Thanks, Caroline. So very positive. Have we got any questions or comments? Lee?
Yeah, just a quick comment really, that it's completely the sort of thing our council plan and our compassionate council want to address, seeing these gaps where I understand what the situation is, where it's difficult for other organisations to sometimes take care of individuals because of the complex needs, and the probably it'll drain their resources maybe that they can't sort of cope with on their own sort of business model or their funding model. It's really hard to react to individuals' situations, isn't it, when you don't know what's going to turn up on your doorstep and you don't know what's going to present itself. So the wider needs of the individuals being catered for and being addressed by multiple partners, and being that done in a safe place to actually, with the attention of helping an individual become independent, gain employment, have a better life really. So I hope we do sort of see this as a start of what we can do. If the demand's not great and that's enough units, that's fine, but we need to make sure that that doesn't stop. So if the funding is going to run out and it's providing an essential service, we need to make sure that continues, because with our third sector, we've seen how funding stream stopping can create problems when you've got sort of successful sort of solutions in place. So it's really good. I'm glad we're doing this, and thanks for all your work.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, Lee. Kevin?
Thanks, Jay. We're showing the county again, are we, leading the way? And you couldn't get a better team to ask to pilot an area. Just thinking about working in partnership working, we've already achieved that with Adelphi Court, haven't we? with Richmond Fellowship and whatever, and it just shows you what we can do. And some of the things with being a county member is they all turn out and say they wish they never give the housing away because what we're achieving about it. So well done. Can I move the report, Chair?
Yeah, no more comments or questions? Got a second there? Second there?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Lee, right. Splendid. Are we all agreed? Presume we're all agreed on that, yeah? Excellent. Splendid. Thank you. Right. Oh, we finished. Hang on, I've got... Right, that brings us to the end of the public bit of the meeting. So hope all of those of you who've been watching this on YouTube really enjoyed it, and we'll see you again in a few weeks on the, what is it, the 23rd of March, I think, our next exec. And we've got to go into part 2 now. So I need somebody to move and second that we go into part 2.
I'll move it.
Seconded.
Right. Thank you very much. you.